Underrated, in case of any possible Taiwan invasion, the Chinese amphibious force and the landing ships are equally as important. Yet, very few media talk about it. The big emphasis has been on the big-ticket items like fighter jets, ICBM, hypersonic missiles, destroyer, submarines, aircraft carriers, even Chinese hacking capabilities. Today, let's try to get to know the People's Liberation Navy Marine Corps and what are the type of equipment they use. In this video, let's try to get to know their landing and invasion force. Of course, in an event the Taiwan invasion actually pushed through, most military observers would agree China has too much firepower against Taiwan, and they would overwhelm them easily on a direct war. The United States has promised to defend Taiwan if China invades, but they also promise Ukraine to defend them if Russia invades. History has proven that promises made during peacetime is not necessarily kept during wartime. Let's take into account that China is a nuclear-armed state. The United States would try to avoid any armed conflict with a nuclear country unless its own sovereignty is at stake. So would they take that risk just for Taiwan? For example, during the Vietnam and Korean War, the Soviet and China sent military equipment to help the North Vietnam and North Korea against the American. Yet the Americans still restrained themselves from striking bases where there are senior Soviet and Chinese military advisors. It is to avoid China and the Soviet Union from directly joining the war. Though certainly, we could expect sanctions or military aid package as support for Taiwan, similar to what they're doing in Ukraine. Also, we all know nothing is certain in the future. There are too many different variables and complex issues, so we couldn't be 100% certain how the West would react in case an actual invasion would really happen. For the sake of this video, let's only focus on a direct China invasion over Taiwan with bare minimum foreign help. So in case of an invasion, China would certainly take out first Taiwan's air defenses, early warning radars, air force, air bases, aircraft hangars, runways, etc. They could do this using hypersonic weapons, cruise missiles, short and medium-range ICBM, as China is believed to have thousands of missiles that has Taiwan within range. China's air force could also do seed operations or suppression of enemy air defense. Chinese drone would probably be used as decoys to disrupt Taiwan's air defense. China would also use their large number of submarines, destroyer, and frigate to control the sea around Taiwan, take out small Taiwanese naval ship, and impose a naval blockade around Taiwan. In Ukraine, the American weapon aid flows through NATO countries sharing border with Ukraine. Meanwhile, that is not in the cards for Taiwan. It is a far island, and China could impose a naval blockade around the tiny nation, preventing any aid coming in or Taiwanese force from going out. The only way to break that is America forcing their way in and taking out Chinese ship directly. We could all agree that's unlikely. Next, China would also have to take out communications to make the Taiwanese line on communications break down during war. They would only probably avoid strikes on vital installation like ports, power supply, as they would need them for logistic operations during the invasion. Once China has air superiority and secured sea around Taiwan, what happens next really depends on Chinese military fighting doctrine. Every country has different war doctrine on how they envision an offensive and defensive stand. Also, in an actual war, variables constantly changes, so they would make adjustment depending on the situation. Once China has air superiority, China has an option to use their Air Force Airborne Corps and its light tanks, then probably land paratroopers behind enemy line and secure civilian airports. Once it's secured, they could use these airports to land additional military troops and equipment, and all the logistics needed by the invasion force, fuel, food, medicine, heavy equipment, communication, etc. China would probably need to provide air cover to these forces. This strategy certainly was used by Russia during the initial stages on the invasion of Ukraine. They had secured the airfields, but they have to abandon them anyway after the initial shock and awe didn't work. Ukraine did collapse and continued fighting. These troops are way far behind enemy lines, so there was no reinforcement, and they were forced to withdraw. Certainly, China would also try to shock and awe during the initial part of the invasion, bombard every major military site, and see if Taiwan buckles down on pressure and just stop fighting and surrenders, breaking the enemy's morale. If that don't work out, China would surely continue to a conventional Normandy-like invasion. But unlike Russia, who just went there head-on attack from all directions taking risk, China would probably take a safe and a cautious approach. They would have probably learned a thing or two from the Ukraine-Russian war. They would probably bombard first and secure beachheads from any threat before actually landing the invasion force. Then of course Chinese amphibious landing and attack ship would be pretty much in play. They would try to keep their Type 75 landing helicopter dock further away from the shore to protect them from threats, but still at close enough distance to conduct helicopter operations. They would probably do the same for their Type 71 amphibious transport docks, and probably wouldn't risk the Type 72 landing ships on the beachhead, even though it's capable for this kinds of operation, as these assets are too vital and expensive. At a safe distance is where this ship would probably launch their most important assets to complete this operation. China would launch first its Type 05 amphibious fighting vehicle and swim into the shore with its support infantry units. All this, of course, with Chinese air cover probably. Then launch the ultra-fast Chinese Bison hovercrafts and the Type 726, 722, 716 LCAC hovercrafts. The ships are fast enough and can carry a large number of payload. China would probably use their large number of smaller landing craft, or LCU. In this way, Chinese Navy wouldn't take such a big risk of losing big ships with large amount of assets during the invasion. Losing a few LCU in the process wouldn't really be that costly for them. It has been circulating on Chinese social a large number of small landing crafts or small utility boats found in naval bases near Taiwan. In the next part of this video, let's try to talk about what are these small countermeasures a small country like Taiwan could do to disrupt this operation and delay the Chinese invasion, and then maybe buy some time for global condemnation so China would be pressured to stop the invasion. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching. If you want more topics like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.